All right, so today we're going to be diving into decentralized identity, DID for short. And the source material that we're going to be going through is this presentation from ArcBlock called Building DID Apps with ArcBlock.
Yeah, and what's really interesting here is ArcBlock, they're really going all in on this idea of like the future of digital ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really appreciate is that they're not just like throwing out these like buzzwords, own your data, decentralized future. They're actually really thinking deeply about the tools and the architecture necessary to make this a reality.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because, I mean,
Right.
trying to manage your online identity. It's like,
Yeah.
you're trying to put together a puzzle, but the pieces are scattered across like a million different platforms. It's
Right.
good luck. It feels impossible to wrangle.
Exactly. And I think what ArcBlock is trying to do here is like give us a whole new puzzle box, right?
Right.
Like one where we get to decide how many pieces there are, who gets to see the final picture.
I like that. That's a really good analogy.
And they're starting with the foundation, right?
Yeah.
Which is a very like robust DID system.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they emphasize is that every identifier in their system is a W3C DID. And this might seem like a small detail, but it's actually a really big deal when it comes to interoperability.
Okay, so break that down for me. What is the significance of every identifier being a W3C DID?
So basically, it means that your digital identity, your DID, can be recognized and verified across any platform or application that adheres to the standard. It's like having a universal digital passport.
Okay, so instead of like all my information being stuck in like Facebook's walled garden or Google's, I have this portable, like verifiable digital identity that I control.
Exactly. And you can use that to prove things like your work history, your skills, your education, without having to give up control of your underlying data.
And that's huge, especially these days where, you apply for a job, you apply for online courses, you have to share so much personal information just to prove that you are who you say you are.
And that's where ArcBlock's approach gets really interesting, because they're not just advocating for DID in principle. They're actually building a comprehensive platform to make it easy for developers to build these decentralized applications, or dApps, as they're commonly called.
Right, and that's where their blocklet architecture comes in,
Right.
which, from what I understand, is kind of like the cornerstone of their development philosophy. I'm picturing it like a toolbox, but instead of hammers and nails, you have all these prefabricated components that are designed for specific functions, like identity management, data storage, even AI integrations. Am I on the right track here?
You are absolutely on the right track. In fact, ArcBlock actually describes blocklets as software Legos. And I gotta say, it's a surprisingly accurate analogy because these blocklets are like self-contained modules.
Okay.
They could be assembled and reassembled in countless different ways,
Yeah.
which gives developers an incredible amount of flexibility and speed.
Okay, so walk me through an example here. How would this work in practice?
Let's say you're building a dApp and you need to implement a secure login system. Right. Well, instead of having to code that entire system from scratch, you could just grab a pre-built authentication blocklet from ArcBlock's blocklet store.
Oh, there's a blocklet store.
There is. It's awesome. And you just plug that blocklet into your dApp and boom, instant secure login functionality.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this could drastically reduce development time and potentially open up dApp creation to a much wider audience. But let's dig a little deeper into this blocklet store, because it sounds like a key piece of the puzzle. What exactly is the blocklet store, and what kind of things can developers find there?
So the blocklet store is essentially a curated marketplace where developers can discover, share, and even monetize their own blocklets.
Oh, wow.
So need a payment gateway that integrates seamlessly with, say, Ethereum. Chances are there's a blocklet for that.
That's amazing.
And because everything is built on open standards, these blocklets can be mixed and matched in ways we haven't even imagined yet.
Okay, so we've got these building blocks, the blocklets, all housed within this ecosystem that prioritizes interoperability and developer freedom. But I'm curious, from a technical standpoint, what makes ArcBlock's approach unique? They mentioned this AND serverless model, which sounds kind of intriguing, but also a bit paradoxical. How does that work in practice?
Yeah, it's a really clever solution, actually.
Yeah.
Because it caters to both ends of the development spectrum.
Yeah.
For individual developers or those who are just starting out, ArcBlock offers a robust serverless infrastructure. So you don't need to manage your own servers. You don't need to worry about all the technical complexities. You just deploy your blocklets and let ArcBlock handle the heavy lifting.
Interesting.
But for larger companies or projects that might have very specific security or compliance requirements, you can also choose to run your blocklets on your own servers.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. You have the convenience of serverless, but also the flexibility and control of running your own infrastructure if you need to.
That's really interesting. It's like offering the convenience of a pre-built house for those who want to move in quickly,
Hmm.
but also providing the blueprints and tools for those who want to customize every detail.
Like that, yeah.
So whether you're a solo developer tinkering in your basement or a Fortune 500 company, ArcBlock has got you covered.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there.
Mm.
Let's talk about the different types of blocklets, because this is where their system's elegance really shines through.
Okay, yeah, let's dive into that.
So the presentation outlines three main categories of blocklets. You have executable blocklets, resource blocklets, and composite blocklets.
3 flavors of blocklets.
Three flavors.
Like,
And each one has a different purpose, but they're all designed to work together seamlessly.
okay, so break down these blocklet flavors for me.
Okay, so let's start with the workhorse. Executable blocklets.
Yeah.
These are the dynamic components of your dApp. Think of them like mini programs, each with a specific function.
Okay.
Out of the box, they come preloaded with Node.js.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting. You can extend their functionality using other languages,
Yeah.
like Python or Go, or even integrate Docker images if that's your jam.
Wow, so right away we're talking about a system that's flexible enough for developers with all sorts of different skills and preferences.
Exactly.
Okay, but what truly makes an executable blocklet special in this whole ecosystem?
It's their ability to act as gateways. Essentially, they can bridge your dApp to the outside world.
Oh, interesting.
So need to connect to an external database? No problem. An executable blocklet can handle that. Want to integrate a payment API, or maybe even communicate with a completely different blockchain? Executable blocklets can do all of that.
Wow, so they're like the connectors, the intermediaries that allow your dApp to interact with anything and everything.
Exactly. They facilitate this seamless flow of data between your decentralized application and the wider digital landscape.
That's incredibly powerful. Okay, so that's executable blocklets. What about resource blocklets? The name suggests that they're more about holding information rather than executing actions.
You got it. Think of resource blocklets as secure containers for your data.
Okay.
This could be anything from images and videos to entire static websites, or even just like raw data sets.
Gotcha.
Essentially, if you need to store and manage data in a decentralized way, a resource blocklet is your go-to solution.
So if I was building a dApp for, say, a decentralized art gallery, I could use a resource blocklet to store and display the artwork itself.
Exactly.
And because everything is decentralized, that artwork would be accessible to anyone on the network, right?
Exactly. And because these blocklets are built with DID standards in mind, you have granular control over access rights. You can specify who can view the artwork, who can modify it, who can share it.
Interesting.
It's all about security and flexibility.
That makes sense. Okay, so we've got the action-oriented executable blocklets. We've got the data-centric resource blocklets, which brings us to composite blocklets. I'm sensing a pattern here. Like, these might be the masterminds behind the operation.
You are catching on quick. This is where the software Legos analogy really shines.
Okay.
Imagine taking multiple executable and resource blocklets, each one performing its own specific task, and then combining them into a single higher-level unit. That's essentially what a composite blocklet is.
Okay, so it's like instead of having to put together every individual Lego brick, you have these larger pre-assembled components, like a car chassis or a spaceship cockpit,
Precisely.
that you can then use to build even more complex structures.
Exactly. And just like with Legos, the possibilities are practically endless.
So you could have a composite blocklet for something like user authentication that combines an executable blocklet for handling login logic with a resource blocklet for storing user data.
Exactly. Or you could even build entire mini applications within a larger dApp, all using these composite blocklets.
Wow, that's next level.
It's all about abstraction, making the code base cleaner, easier to maintain,
Yeah.
and less prone to errors.
I'm starting to see why they call this an elegant system. It's like they've taken this incredibly complex concept of decentralized technology and broken it down into these manageable, modular components that can be combined and recombined in countless ways.
And that's the beauty of it, right? It's this elegant combination of simplicity and power that makes ArcBlock so compelling.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about blocklets, but how does this all tie back to ArcBlock's overall vision for a decentralized future? We've touched on their own blockchain, the ABT network, But what role does that play in this whole ecosystem?
That's a really important question because it highlights how ArcBlock is thinking about the decentralized landscape as a whole. They're not just creating tools for like a single blockchain or a single ecosystem.
Right.
They're really trying to build bridges, right?
Okay.
So the ABT network, their blockchain, it acts as the foundation, but it's designed with interoperability in mind from the very beginning. Remember those executable blocklets we were talking about?
Yeah.
The ones that can act as gateways?
Right, right.
Well, they can connect to other major blockchains like Ethereum, Solana, even layer 2 solutions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's less about competing with other blockchains and more about like creating this unified platform where developers can pick and choose the best tools for the job, regardless of the underlying blockchain technology.
So it's almost like they're trying to create this like decentralized internet of blockchains.
Exactly. It's about fostering this more connected and collaborative decentralized ecosystem.
They like it. So they're not just building a platform, they're building an entire like philosophy almost.
Yeah, it's a whole paradigm shift. And this is where the technical details of the ABT network get really interesting because they've implemented some innovative consensus mechanisms and governance structures that really prioritize both scalability and security.
Which are essential if they want to see widespread adoption.
Absolutely. They're addressing some of those key challenges that have plagued other blockchains. Things like slow transaction speeds and high fees, which often create a huge barrier to entry for both developers and users.
Yeah, for sure.
So by focusing on interoperability from the ground up, they're future-proofing their platform.
Okay, so they're really thinking long-term here. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about how someone actually gets started with all of this. The presentation mentions two paths, with code or without code, which is a smart move because it caters to both seasoned developers and those who are just dipping their toes into the world of decentralized tech.
Yeah, I thought that was really smart of them. They've clearly made an effort to make their platform accessible to a wider range of users.
Yeah.
So for those who are comfortable with code,
Yeah.
the DID blocklet server is their playground, essentially. You can install it locally, spin up a secure development environment, and really start building custom dApps with all the power and flexibility that ArcBlock offers.
And they even provide resources and documentation to help you set up all the essential tools, right? Like a DID wallet.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. But what about the no-code route? The presentation mentions something called the AGN Studio, which immediately piqued my interest.
Oh yeah, AGN Studio is where things get really interesting, even for non-coders. Imagine a visual interface where you can drag, drop, and connect pre-built blocklets to create your own dApps without writing a single line of code.
Wow, no code at all.
No code at all. It's designed to be very intuitive and user-friendly so that anyone, regardless of the technical background, can experiment with decentralized applications and bring their ideas to life.
So if I had an idea for, say, a decentralized social media platform or a marketplace for digital art, I could theoretically prototype that in AGN Studio without needing to know how to code.
That's the idea.
Wow.
It's a powerful tool for rapid prototyping and experimentation. And here's where it gets even more interesting. AGN Studio also integrates seamlessly with AI, specifically large language models, or LLMs.
Hold on. So we're talking about building decentralized applications powered by artificial intelligence, all without writing a single line of code. This is starting to sound like something out of a science fiction novel.
I know, right? It's a glimpse into the future of development, where lines between traditional coding and AI-powered tools are becoming increasingly blurred.
So within AGN Studio, you could theoretically leverage the power of LLMs to automate tasks, generate content, create intelligent features for your dApps.
All the above.
That's incredible.
It's really pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah. Okay, so not only does ArcBlock provide the building blocks for decentralized applications, but they also give you access to the tools and technologies that are shaping the future of software development itself.
Exactly.
That's incredibly forward-thinking.
It really is. It speaks to their commitment to not just building a platform, but fostering an ecosystem of innovation and experimentation.
I'm starting to see why there's so much buzz around ArcBlock. They're not just riding the wave of decentralization, they're actively shaping its direction.
They're doing it in a way that's both technically impressive and surprisingly accessible.
Yeah, they've managed to strike that balance between sophistication and user-friendliness.
Exactly.
Which is really rare to find in the world of blockchain technology.
It's not easy.
Okay, so this has been incredibly illuminating. I feel like we've only scratched the surface of what ArcBlock is building, but it's clear that they're onto something special. But before we get too carried away singing their praises,
Mm.
we always try to be objective here on the deep dive.
Of course, of course.
We've talked a lot about the potential benefits and innovations, but are there any potential downsides or challenges that you foresee?
That's the million-dollar question with any emerging technology, right?
Yeah.
No matter how promising it may seem. And yes, while ArcBlock presents a very compelling vision for a decentralized future, there are some inherent challenges that come with this territory.
Okay, so what are some of the potential hurdles that you see, either that ArcBlock might face as a company or that we as a society need to consider as we move towards a more decentralized internet?
Well, one of the biggest challenges, and this applies to the entire decentralized space, is the issue of scalability. Can these decentralized networks handle the massive volume of transactions and data that we've come to expect from our centralized counterparts?
That's a really good point, because if these decentralized networks can't keep up with the demands of a global user base, it's going to stifle their growth and limit their potential impact.
Exactly. Another challenge is user experience. Decentralized technologies often require a steeper learning curve than their centralized counterparts.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all used to the convenience and user friendliness of platforms like Facebook and Google, right?
Right.
But interacting with decentralized applications can sometimes feel a little clunky, a little intimidating for the average user.
It's like the difference between using a smartphone with a sleek, intuitive interface and trying to navigate the early days of the internet with command line prompts and dial-up modems.
Exactly. And while ArcBlock has made significant strides in simplifying the development process and creating more user-friendly tools like AG Studio, there's still work to be done to bridge that gap and make decentralized technologies truly accessible to the masses.
It's a good reminder that technology is only as good as its ability to be used and understood by the people it's meant to serve.
100%.
So it's not just about building cool tech, it's about building tech that people actually want to use.
And that's why it's so important to have these open and honest conversations about both the potential and the challenges of these emerging technologies.
Yeah, for sure.
We need to approach them with a healthy dose of skepticism and critical thinking, while also remaining open to the transformative possibilities they hold.
I completely agree. So, as we delve deeper into the world of ArcBlock and decentralized identity, let's keep those nuances in mind. It's not just about celebrating the innovations, but also about critically examining their potential impact and ensuring that we're building a future that benefits everyone.
Well said. It really is a tightrope walk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Balancing this, excitement for the potential of this technology, but also being aware of, the potential downsides.
Yeah.
The nature of progress, though.
For sure. Especially in a space like this that's so disruptive, so new, and has the potential to really fundamentally change how we interact with technology and with each other online.
And I think that's what makes ArcBlock so interesting to me. Because they're not just building technology, right? They're really proposing this new model for how we interact with the digital world.
Yeah.
A world where we're not just passive users, but we're actually active participants who have control over our own digital destinies.
It's a really seductive vision, but it also begs the question, are we ready for that?
Right.
Can we handle that level of individual empowerment without creating new vulnerabilities or making existing ones even worse?
It's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think there's an easy answer. But what I find really intriguing about ArcBlock's approach is they're not just throwing technology at the problem and hoping for the best.
Right.
They're really thinking about the human element, They're thinking about education, accessibility, and creating tools that empower even those who might not have a ton of technical expertise.
Which is essential, because a decentralized future where only a select few have the knowledge or resources to participate, that's not really a future. That's not a future worth striving for. It needs to be about democratizing access, leveling the playing field, making sure that everyone has the opportunity to benefit.
100%.
And I think that's where those two paths that we talked about earlier, the with code and the without code options, become so important. Because by providing multiple entry points, ArcBlock is basically saying, hey, whether you're a seasoned developer or just someone with a great idea and a curious mind, there's a place for you in this decentralized future.
It's a really powerful message.
It is. And it kind of harkens back to what we were talking about earlier with Agene, their no-code AI tool.
Right.
This really does seem like a potential game changer, not just for dApp development, but for software development as a whole. The idea that anyone, regardless of their coding skills, could theoretically harness the power of AI to create these really sophisticated applications, it's exhilarating, but it's
Yeah.
also a little bit daunting.
It is. It's both. It's like we're peeking into this future where
Yeah.
the traditional barriers to entry in tech are just
Yeah.
lowered, where creativity and problem-solving skills become,
Yeah.
if not more important than, at least as important as deep technical knowledge.
Right.
But as with any powerful tool,
Yeah.
there's always the potential for misuse as well.
Which brings us back to those potential downsides, even with the best intentions. How do we make sure that these decentralized technologies are used responsibly and ethically? How do we prevent them from being used for malicious purposes or making existing inequalities even worse?
Yeah. It's a really tough question.
Yeah.
And there's no one easy answer. But I think a big part of it is awareness, education. The more we understand these technologies, how they work, what their potential implications are,
Yeah.
the better equipped we'll be to actually navigate the challenges and opportunities they present.
So it's a shared responsibility then. It's not just on the developers. It's not just on these tech companies. It's on all of us to become more informed, really engage with this stuff, and figure out how we want to shape this decentralized future.
And that's what's been so great about this conversation. It's not just about understanding the technical details of ArcBlock or DID.
Yeah.
It's about starting this bigger conversation.
Yes.
Asking the tough questions.
Right.
And really like grappling with
Right.
what these technologies mean for our society as a whole.
Well said. As we wrap up this deep dive into the world of ArcBlock and decentralized identity, let's remember that this isn't the end of the conversation. It's just the beginning.
100%.
The future is being written in code and in the choices that we make today.
Every single day.
And it's a future that holds immense promise, but also potential peril. So let's embrace that curiosity, that critical thinking, that willingness to really engage with these complex issues so we can build a better future for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope you found this exploration of ArcBlock, decentralized identity, and the future of digital ownership as fascinating as we did. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep exploring the ever-evolving world of technology.